couldn't get it up. And you know, it's like you're standing with my iPhone like in the flames. When you get down, it's break right in front of you. Don't worry about it. I already have it. It's better than the Sony. There's no training on the boss. Like I went through a period where they would give me show them the ropes and show me what you use.
Make it feel this thing doesn't walk so quickly.
Well, it's like, you know.
What's up? So it doesn't walk so quickly?
Does it lock automatically?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
There's nothing you can do?
not within 2 minutes. If you put the video up on the screen, but don't play it, that might keep it open.
I have it right here at the box, down here.
It's already open?
Yeah.
I just thought it was all the face. That's who's that?
Kind of weird zoom on the screen too. But leave that on the screen in my phone. Let me check one more.
Taking photos and posting them online. Like, front of me when you go over there, so you got the shoot to the photo. Yeah, big time. Shoot to power, they're not going to make an R. Oh yeah, that's right. He was supposed to be, but the 6 and the 8 is supposed to be like they
don't know if it's going to work out with this.
He went all the way to Palmdale to see if next time it's still there. So they basically took it like wow. I didn't know about that. That's why he did the baseball team.
I'm going to change it back when we're done. Okay.
It's a good camera. Early on.
All right. Doesn't matter though. It won't go to sleep. The screen won't shut off.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, he was the one that I didn't train him or anything, but he was in 1 week and then he was gone.
And Jake, I can't see.
Oh, the Carter's office. I didn't sure see him. And then on this usually specifically his first this camera itself is a transfer. So it's like, okay, what's this guy about? Right away. Yeah, this is a total 100%. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that watch like small markets, and you know, they're ready. Because they have the integrity, they have the skill, and the maturity. That's the thing. It's a hard out. That's how you got it. Like a boot camp. I won't never forget about it. But then we'll fix it. To kind of like another standard. I would only regularly have to worry about it once or twice. I need that like so many frames a second. Last guy I brought in was not I need that, you know. I said, you know, he knew. Yeah, I just not really. If I look out in China, because I there's like 40 people in the world because we were community second cameras. Yeah, I'm like, dude, I go, dude, I don't give you a number, but oh, you're sending to the crowd, I don't know you were. Oh, yeah? Just because Yeah, when I went to Fox, it was like, yeah, that's coming here. I gave me another TV, so it's a photo of it. Oh, you're right.
Mostly they
Now they won't take that one. They want to take something. I feel it's like, I don't know. Hey, my friends on so-so. Yeah, let me talk to them. They hire them. That's what I think is happening.
It works actually. Yeah. It's pretty simple obviously, but it works. $10. Oh, well, I help. It's an agency called Back.
if I want to send something
It's like that. You know what's scary, you know. Yes.
That is Senator Bond.
Yeah.
look at Mario. This was my nephew. The only one for me is that.
Yeah, usually I send a new version for
Here, you'll sit over here. Why don't you sit over here? Here, wait. Closer to the microphone.
Thank you.
That's it. That's good. Well.
Hi, hi, everyone.
Good morning. Hold on.
Hi, thanks for coming.
Wait. Okay. Just hold on. Just a moment, please. All right, thank you. Okay. Let's wait, Jacob. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. I'm attorney Gloria Allred, and today I'm honored to be here with Veronika Didusenko, Miss Ukraine 2018. Veronika and her 7-year-old son were forced to flee from Ukraine, her homeland, and the country she loves on February 24th, 2022, when Putin began to bomb Kyiv, the city in Ukraine where she and her son reside. I first met Veronika in January of this year when she reached out on the internet to meet me to discuss an important issue affecting women around the world. She then came to my office in Los Angeles in January for a meeting with me to discuss how we could take action on a women's rights issue. Veronika is deeply committed to working on women's rights issues, and we decided that we would meet again today, March 8th, International Women's Day, to have a press conference and to take action on the issue that affects the condition and the status and the rights of women. Of course, that decision was made before Putin began his horrific and unjustified war on Ukraine and its citizens. When the war began last month, I reached out to Veronika, who was home in Ukraine. I was concerned for her safety and the safety of her son, and I thought that under the circumstances, she would not be able to make her trip to Los Angeles. But Veronika decided to make what seemed to be impossible possible. Like so many other Ukrainians, she is deeply committed to her values, her homeland, and her rights. She traveled through war-torn Ukraine with her young son and through 4 countries to get her child to a safe place. And then she came here to do the press conference in Los Angeles today with me on International Women's Day. Because this war is continuing, even as we speak on this day, we want to highlight both the courage and the suffering of the mothers and children of Ukraine, who have been fleeing through bombing, shooting, fires, and destruction all around them to get to safety with and for their children. Many have lost their homes, many are separated from their husbands who must stay and fight the Russian military, and many have lost members of their family who have been killed or are too frail, elderly, or sick to leave Ukraine. Many of these mothers and children are leaving or have left and have no idea where they will be able to live with their children and if they will be able to return to their former homes, their friends, their family, their co-workers, and the land and people that they love. Many are trying to find a place in Europe to live, and Europe has helped. But Europe is experiencing a refugee crisis, with more than 1 million refugees entering their countries in a short period of time, and millions more are expected. As Americans, we must do everything possible to open our doors as well to these refugees, and particularly mothers with children. Today, I urge President Biden to immediately announce that he will give Ukrainians the opportunity to come to the United States if they so choose. He should issue them, quote, humanitarian parole, end quote, which would allow them, after being screened, to enter and stay in the United States without a visa because of this urgent humanitarian crisis. Many refugees from Afghanistan were admitted to the United States and allowed to stay here because they were issued humanitarian parole. This approach is necessary and urgent because the visa process could take many months or longer, and the delay in that process may put the lives of mothers and children at risk. A portion of the poem by Emma Lazarus on the Statue of Liberty says, quote, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door," end quote. We are a big country with a big heart. Many of our parents and grandparents came to this country as refugees and were looking for a better and safer life. I know that Ukrainians want to return home to their country when it is safe and possible for them to return. But for now, millions of Ukrainians have no place to live. Europe is doing what it can, but we must step up as well. I call on President Biden to announce as soon as possible that he will provide humanitarian parole and allow as many of these Ukrainian mothers and children to enter the United States as soon as possible. Today is International Women's Day, and the time for urgent action is now. And now I present a woman who inspires me,
Thank you.
Veronika. Veronika, move over here, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. It was a heart-touching message, heartbreaking and touching message, and I'm grateful to you for saying all of this. It's so important for all of the Ukrainian women and their children, and for the whole Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Veronika Didusenko. I'm from the besieged city of Kyiv, from the war-torn Ukraine. On February 24th, my 7-year-old son and I were awakened by sirens and explosions. Kyiv, a city of more than 3 million people which was asleep, without any formal declaration of war, without any hope for its inhabitants to take shelter, was hit by an enemy bomb. In between raids, we, along with tens of thousands of families, of other families, tried to get out of the city. Thousands of cars formed a traffic jam on the highway on the way out of Kyiv for many hours. Directly above my head, dozens of Russian helicopters with troops were bombing the Hostomel airfield in their effort to take it. The airfield was formerly famous for being home to the largest aircraft in the world, the Ukrainian Mriya. But now, in this war by Putin against Ukraine, the Russian military burned it down. Today, however, that airfield is famous because a handful of 18, 19-year-old Ukrainian boys, conscripted soldiers, stopped the so-called unstoppable Russian special forces. As I was fleeing with my young son, I could see that there was a real air battle above our heads. On my many-way journey to the border of Ukraine, there was no place where sirens would not sound, where rockets and bombs would not explode. In order to get out to this safe place with my son at a home of friends who could help us, we had to travel through 4 countries: Moldova, Romania, Luxembourg, and Switzerland. I had hoped to fly to Los Angeles with my son for a temporary trip. I went to the U.S. Embassy in Luxembourg to apply for a visa for my son. I had a visa which has been issued to me some time ago. But when I applied for a visa last week for my son, the visa for him to travel with me to the United States was denied. Therefore, I had to leave my son with my friends in Geneva until I returned at the end of this week. I was forced to choose between staying with my son in Switzerland or coming to Los Angeles. It was a difficult choice, but my son was safe with my friends in Geneva. Consequently, I went to Los Angeles to be with Miss Allred, because a few months ago we planned to be together on International Women's Day to discuss women's rights around the world. After I arrived, however, Miss Allred and I decided that most important was to discuss what is happening to mothers and their children in Ukraine as they are forced to flee. Right now, millions of Ukrainian children and their mothers are trembling at every sound in the subway stations and bomb shelters. Even more heartbreaking is that women are given birth in such conditions in these shelters. Right now, Russian aircraft, missiles, and multiple rocket launchers continue to strike at dozens of Ukrainian cities. The Kremlin called the invasion of my country of 40 million of people not a war, but rather a special operation against the Nazis. They invented this story, and it is nothing but Russian propaganda. It is Putin who behaves like a Nazi in every war crime he commits in Ukraine. Putin said he would not bomb civilian targets, but then why did he bomb the maternity hospital of Zhytomyr city, the orphanage in the city of Vorzel in Ukraine, the kindergarten in the urban village of Stanitsa Luhanska in Ukraine, the school of the Ukrainian city of Ochtyrka, the university in the city of Kharkiv, and the hospital in the city of Chernihiv in Ukraine. I don't have the latest figures, but this past weekend, 34 hospitals have either been fully destroyed or damaged to the point of having to shut down. Putin's military attacked the citizens of Mariupol and Irpin, who were being shot at as they tried to evacuate using an agreed-upon humanitarian corridor. Looked at the museum of the Ukrainian artist Maria Primachenko, burned down by the invaders in Ivankove, where the Russian soldiers pass, there remains a strip of fires, looted shops, pharmacies, and broken ATMs. And of course, the shooting of the largest European nuclear power plant in Zaporizhia, the shelling of the experimental nuclear reactor in Kharkiv city, and the holding hostage of Chernobyl workers without letting them have access to the storage of nuclear waste there, puts not only Ukraine, but Europe and the whole world into the danger of the threat of a new nuclear catastrophe. And most importantly, Putin does not hide his goal, which is the eradication of everything Ukrainian and of Ukraine itself. The leadership of Russia, the Russian president himself, has repeatedly called our country a historical mistake. In 2014, 8 years ago, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians came out to the Independence Square of Kiev and said no to President Yanukovych, who instead of the promised association agreement with the European Union was preparing to give the country to Russia, having paid with more than 100 lives within one. Unfortunately, though, we were not able to stop the occupation of Crimea and most of the Donbass. However, for all these long 8 years of war, students, managers, IT workers, and all Ukrainians have been learning how to fight. Therefore, the new Russian invasion in 2022 was met by a completely different country. Ukrainians now have a steel will and courage which was straightened because of Putin's actions against our country. From the very first days of the Russian invasion, the myth about the invincibility of Russians' weapons and about the effectiveness of their military strategy was debunked. Not only professional soldiers are fighting. In addition, hundreds of thousands of civilians, men and women, have signed up for the territorial defense. And where they don't have the organized territorial defense, the inhabitants of villages and cities, unarmed, stand in the way of the tanks' columns of the invaders. In the first week of the war alone, 2,000 civilians were killed. Over 100 children have been killed and more than 800 have been injured. As President Zelensky said just today, the day before, in the besieged Mariupol, where the Russians have been promising but not opening humanitarian passages for several days, the first child died of dehydration. Also among the fallen heroes who defended Ukraine, there are women. I will name just a couple of names. The first Ukrainian fighter pilot, Natalia Perakov, and volunteer veteran, Irina Svila. Over 2 million Ukrainians are forced to leave their homes. Besieged by the Russians, but stubbornly fighting, cities are on the verge of a humanitarian catastrophe. But they are not giving up. In the occupied cities of Kherson, Melitopol, Novakakhovka, and other cities, people are going outside to protest daily, despite bullets flying over their heads. Ukrainians absolutely have the courage to defend their land and homes, but in order to stop the endless attack from the east and north, they are in desperate need of weapons and ammunition. We will fight for our freedom and yours. We will fight and we win. We appreciate and thank our allies and friends for their help, not only governments, but hundreds of thousands of regular people and celebrities. Everyone is helping however they can. Those remaining in Ukraine need this help the most. Those who are under fire from the Russian fascist bombs are begging our allies to close the skies over Ukraine. Unfortunately, their pleas are falling on deaf ears in Washington and Europe, just like the warnings of Putin madness over the past 8 years. We're fighting for our land and our freedom. Glory to Ukraine, Slava Ukraini. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now going to show you a short video that Veronika took, and also some photos of her journey with her son from Ukraine. So, do we have the monitor to show? Oh, here. Yes.
Yeah.
It's Russian helicopters.
Yeah.
Russian helicopters.
Yeah, they're flying to bomb the Hostomel airfield. It was 50 of them. Yeah. It was.
And then we'll show the photos.
Yeah, it just. Okay, so I explain. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, go ahead. You can explain.
So it's me and Alex when we just crossed the Moldova border, and I was so relieved that I could take my child away from the war, but it's at the same time it's a big pain that millions of kids are still in Ukraine.
Okay, next.
And the helicopters which were flying, we saw them once we just started leaving Kiev. It was 24th of February. It was, I think, like 10 a.m. or something like that, when the war just started. So this is Alex on the border of Moldova, just with his little luggage. So, yeah.
Okay, next photo.
Yeah, it's awesome plane, and Alex told me that, not me, but he's told to our friends when we arrived that Mommy took me away from Ukraine so that I don't get shot by the Russian military. So it's heartbreaking, yeah. Yeah, it's the same Moldova border. And it just us after we went through it, and it was like pharmacy or something. So we were happy to be alive.
How old is your son again?
He's 7.
He's 7 years old, yes. Okay, so now we're going to take some questions, but before we do, we'd like to play the national anthem. Let's hold this. Can you stand? Thank you. I'm going to stand for just a moment, and then, okay, just to hold this so they can see it. We ordinarily would stand during the national anthem, but because of the Zoom camera, we stay seated. But of course, we respect the national anthem and Ukraine. Okay, I think now we can take some questions.
We know that during tragic
Move over.
times, most often women and children suffer the greatest.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us in your own words, what was that flight to freedom like?
What was it, what?
The
What
flight
was
to
the flight
freedom,
to
what was that
freedom
like?
in your own words?
Oh, it was not actually flight. It
No,
was,
yeah, but she means
yeah, I know.
leaving. Yeah.
I know. But it was horrible because so many children and their mothers trying to just to get to the border of Ukraine. It can take up to like 3 or 4 days driving like non-stop. So it's a big traffic jams, everyone trying to escape. But what is more violent at the moment, that Russian militaries sometimes stop and shot at these innocent people who are trying to escape. Can you imagine? They don't allow humanitarian corridors to happen. They close it. They don't let them happen. And when they see this, someone's trying to escape, they can shoot at them. They can kill people, kill children. So it can take up to few days. And now my mother and my grandmother, my father, they stayed in Kiev. And they even cannot leave. First of all, they don't want to leave. They want to protect their land, their home. But second of all, even if they decided to do so, they might be not able to get to the border. They might get killed by Russians. Yeah.
I imagine your son was very scared.
Just you cannot say anything good to comfort children while it's war. You just say the truth. He knows everything. He knows war happening. He knows that Russia invaded Ukraine. He understands it all. But what I could tell him that, we are, while you're in shelter, it's safe. So even on the way to border, so we stayed in one of the cities on the way and had a night there. But we had to move to shelter like every time we heard a siren. And in shelter, it's safe. So he was a little bit feeling okay because he knew it's safe. But even when we crossed the border, me and my son, we could still hear the sirens in our ears. We could still the explosions, the rocket sounds. So it took us a week, more than 10 days now, to get to our normal state of feelings. Yeah, so it was very difficult. And some people, they're staying on the borders. There are 2 million of people who left Ukraine at the moment. And all of the 2 million, they are on the border of Ukraine. They can be there like for up to 60 hours sometimes, They just stay there. It's like big queues. Borders are other countries, like they're doing everything possible to take people, but there are too many of them. Yeah.
How hard was it to leave him there?
To leave?
How hard was it to leave your son?
In Switzerland, it was heartbreaking because when I went to U.S. embassy, I was sure that they will provide a visa for Alex because he's my son. He's just 7 years old, but they said to me, unfortunately, we cannot do so. And I was I was broken because after everything he survived in Ukraine, now I had to leave him for just a few days when I'm here alone without me. So how a kid who survived like bombing of Kiev, how could I leave him? But I was fortunate, and he was studying in international school, and one of his classmates, they just moved to Geneva just a few months ago. So he was happy to stay in Geneva while I'm in the U.S. But
With his friends?
With his friends, yeah, sure, with our friends, yeah.
If there's one specific thing that you're asking for today,
Yeah.
what is the most important thing that you want the American people to know?
Yeah, to close the skies over Ukraine, so that not so many civilians are dying, because that's the most horrible. People are dying in shelters with no food, no water, no light, no warmth, And it is tragedy for the whole, it's terrorism by Putin. It's like terrorism. He's playing against even the war rules, you know. I want civil people to be alive and be okay. I want to close the skies for Ukraine.
What are the prospects of getting a visa for your son?
What are the prospects?
Of getting a visa for your son. I would say at this point, and this is why I have emphasized a humanitarian parole, I don't think she could get a visa for her son at this point. But she is going back to be with her son this weekend. And, but we want other mothers and children who really don't have any place and who do want to move to the United States or visit the United States to be with many friends and family they may have here, or just to have the opportunity to accept the invitation of nonprofits to come here who will help them if they are here. You know, we need to have action on that. There are many things that have to be done, and I think that the president did something very important this morning when he decided to restrict oil from Russia to the United States. That was very brave on his part. And there's so much more that the administration is doing and more that I know they want to do. But we all need to do everything we can because every single American has a stake in what happens in Ukraine. And we're all paying the price of what happens. I want to say one last thing, and two last things. One is that I do want to commend the bravery also of the women who are still in Ukraine. Many of them are fighting the Russian military forces. Many of them are making Molotov cocktails. Many of them are fighting with the military. And many of them are doing whatever they can do. These are so brave. And we remember them, and they are inspiring to us. Finally, I do want to say that when Veronika came in January, she had a very important issue that she came to me to discuss. And we were going to talk about that issue today and the action we were going to take. We are going to do that tomorrow, right here. But it's a different issue. And we wanted to do, and someone else will be joining us for that. And we will let everybody know about that tomorrow. So we want to thank the wonderful Veronika, who is such a beautiful representative of her country, for her courage in fleeing but then now being a voice for Ukrainian mothers and their children and for the people of Ukraine. So.
Ukraine needs help, and so we do ask for help for the Ukraine with weapons, with ammunition, with clothes in the sky. Mothers and children needs it.
Okay.
They need it. Thank you everyone for coming.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll see some of you tomorrow.
And thank you, Gloria, for making all of this happen.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we'll go.